Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start off today by just saying what I observed, and that is that we are creatures of habit. And Sunday after Sunday, I sit there and I watch as you come in, and most of you have your own seat that you gravitate towards, and you kind of think that it's yours. And if somebody else is in it, I think you're kind about it, but you let them know it's your seat with a gesture or two. But today, something different is going on. I don't understand. It's like you are usually over here, and you two are usually over here, and Damar and Helen usually sit right next to each other. Today there's an empty seat between them, so I don't know what's going on there. And you haven't been here for 3 years. That is my good friend Chip Glazer. He moved to Boston and he's visiting us today. He was our former cameraman. Stand up, Chip, so we can give you a round of applause. Today's lesson is part of the Simple Secret series, and it is the simple secret of living a successful and fulfilling life. So to begin with, I'd like to kind of explain to you about the world that we live in. There's nearly 8 billion people at this point, and there's people of all different shapes and sizes and colors and dispositions, and each and every person has their very unique and own individual nature. And that unique and individual nature resonates with the nature of life, the nature of the universe, the nature of God, so to speak. As we go through life, we have ups and downs, we have problems, we have challenges, we have setbacks, we have upsets. All sorts of things take place that we have absolutely no control over, but that's just the way life is. So the secret to a successful and fulfilling life is to fit into the life that is out there. You can't change it. You can only change your own personal life and your own personal preferences, but you can't change life. So we need to fit into it in a peaceful way. That's the first point. The second point is the only way we can fit into the world in a peaceful way, the only way we can fit into a place where we are comfortable and we resonate with what's going on is to be our true and natural self. Now that seems easy enough. All I have to do is be me, and all I have to do is find my place where I fit in, and my life is going to be successful and it's going to be fulfilling. But it really isn't quite that easy, is it? Because we live in a world that works day and night at trying to make us into something that we are not. Whether it's an advertisement on a billboard or on TV or other people's opinions, everything out there is trying to change us to some degree. And so we have a tendency to kind of wander away from who we are. And when we wander away from who we are, we begin to put up this effort or this exercise to fit in as somebody that we are not, and that's very tough. It's difficult because we always fail at it. We're never going to live up to somebody that has very rigid expectations of us, no matter how much we change. And no matter how much you change, you're never going to be able to resonate within yourself about who you are and the life that you have and bring forth all the joy and the pleasures that you desire. Now, a perfect example of this is a favorite story of mine, and it's about a duck egg that somehow ended up in the chicken coop. Well, the mother hen sat on that egg, she hatched that egg, she adopted the duckling, and she tried to make the duckling as much of a chicken as she possibly could. She tried to teach that poor little duck how to walk like a chicken, how to cluck like a chicken, how to pick gravel, and even how to roost like a chicken, all of which the poor little duck did poorly. In addition to that, as the duck was growing up, the other chickens began to tease it because it was awkward at what it was doing. They began to taunt it. They began to put it down, and the duck developed a very severe case of low self-esteem and a sense of unworthiness. The duck just didn't understand it because all the duck knew was chickens, and that's what that duck thought that it was supposed to be. Well, every day, the chickens would go out and they'd walk along this road, and about 25 yards off the road, there was a lake. And when they walked by there, that duck had this unexplainable, irresistible desire to go in the water. But all the chickens said, "You're a fool for even thinking that." The water is dangerous. Never leave the road. One day, as they're walking down that road, the duck wandered off, broke rank, headed towards the water. All the other chickens began to cluck hysterically because they thought that the duck was going to die. The duck comes to the water, steps in, glides across the water, and for the first time found a joy of what it meant to be alive. Now, I tell you this story because we've all faced pretty much the same thing. Whether it was in school or at church or in social circles, whatever it might be, we run into places where it seems like we have to change in order to fit in. And once again, once we do that, we lose our identity. Jesus says you can do everything possible to please all people, but if you lose your soul, if you lose your spirit, if you lose your heart in the process, what have you gained? Each of us, when we come into this world, we're a very unique and individual person. As I said before, there's nobody else like us. We're one of a kind. And when we come in, we have a very unique and individual path that's designed specifically for us. It's a path that's going to take us to our highest good. It's a path that's going to allow us to express our highest potential. Now, each path is only one of a billion paths. And the only question you have to ask yourself about the path that you're on is, does it have a heart? Is this where I belong? I've talked to lots and lots of people over the years about their dismay with life. They feel like something's missing. They feel there's something wrong with themselves. They're just not good enough. And it always comes down to, when I ask them, what exactly is it you want? It always comes down to a similar answer is, I just want a life that feels like it's mine. And I just want to be me. And I feel it's very easy to do. You just have to step back and allow all the other psychological clothing you've put on to please other people or to become what somebody thought you should be. Take that off and just be yourself and be prepared to meet with rejection, be prepared to meet with criticism, be prepared to meet with people like chickens that cluck hysterically because you're not what they think you should be. And just do it. And all of a sudden you'll find yourself very much at ease and you discover life unimaginably before. Last week, Donna Johnson talked about regrets. And I started thinking this week about any regrets that I might have at this point in time. I was reminded of a time about 15 years ago or so when I had a regret that just continued to persist. And it went on and on and on. And I want to tell you how it came about. I need to give you a little background story here. I was born in a very typical and normal Norwegian Lutheran family in South Dakota. My father never went to church, but he insisted that us three kids do. So he'd take us to church every Sunday and drop us off a block away so nobody could see him. And then pick us up at that same spot, after church. My father never went to church, but by God, he was a Lutheran. And he drilled that into us. Now, the rule in our family was we had to go to church until we were confirmed. And once we were confirmed, then we could make the decision whether to continue going to church or not. All three of us opted out. But, by God, we were Lutherans. And we still claim that today when I go back home. To shift gears just a little bit, when I was about 12 years old, I started working in my father's car dealership. And over the years, I worked almost every position. I was being trained to someday take over the business as the oldest son and heir apparent. Well, that someday came when I was 22. I thought it was a great deal of fun at first, that I was the boss, I was in charge, and I had these tremendous assets at my disposal. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was way too immature, way too full of puff and stuff to be able to maintain that position. And then I wandered off the path and I got involved in some bad habits, in some addictions, and my character didn't lend itself to being a leader. And when the company started failing financially, my position was taken away from me. Well, years go by and I clean myself up, go to ministerial school, and I become the minister of Unity Temple. But I always had that regret that I wasn't the son my father wanted me to have, that I didn't have what it takes to take over the business, that I didn't protect and care for everything that he'd built his whole life to build. Well, about 15 years after that, after my father died, my brother calls me, who'd taken over the business, and he said, I was cleaning out the business safe, and I found a letter from Dad that has never been opened. I said, what does it say? He said, well, I'll send it to you. So for 2 days, I was wondering what this letter said, and I was pretty sure I knew. He was going to say, here's the business. I worked my life for it. It is now yours. Take care of it. I was sure he's going to say, go out there and sell a lot of cars and make a lot of money, and you're going to be happy. I'm sure he said, you were first and foremost in my importance when I built this business because I wanted you to have something. And that was the regret that I'd carried all those years. And even though it wasn't constant, it would come in occasionally, like a black cloud, come in and just kind of hover around for a while. It made me really feel sorry about letting my father down. I didn't feel so sorry about failing in the business. I discovered I really wasn't, I didn't fit into that business anyway, and I really didn't care for it. But I felt bad about failing my father. So the letter comes. My brother had opened it. It's on a piece of yellow lined paper. And I start to read it. And the first part is just giving basic directions about what to do immediately after his death. Then we get the last 3 lines. It gives us direction on how we should live our lives. The last 3 lines said, or the beginning said, Dear Duke, Ted, and Trudy, I feel like my time is limited and I don't have much longer to be with you. And then he went into the particulars about what should be done. The last 3 lines, it says, please do this. Be kind to each other and stick together. Be honorable citizens. And please, start going to church. I go back to my brother and sister and say, we got 2 out of 3. You two got 2 out of 3. But I'm leading the race on this one. This says going to church. And my brother said, well, if I got paid for going to church, I would too. Now, I tell you this story because I'm sure that there's people here today that might be carrying regrets about things that have happened in the past. You might regret that your mother or father weren't completely satisfied with you, or that you let them down, or that you did something you wanted to do, but it wasn't in their plans. You might feel bad about a boss that fired you, or that you had to leave the position and you let that person down. All these regrets we have because of something we didn't do that somebody else wanted need to be put down, and we need to walk away from them. It's just as easy as that. If you want to find your life, if you want to find your highest good, if you want to find that in which you can thrive, the only way it can happen is by being yourself. That is what we're built for. Each and every one of us has an individual nature that's unlike anyone else's, and the only way that we can resonate with this great universe and with God and with life is like being that person. So we have choices to make. If you're out there in the world and you wander into a place where you really don't feel you fit, but you're going to try to fit, and you're going to change yourself, and you're going to be something that you're not, it's never going to work. So you have a choice to make. Either you can stay there and be miserable, or you can find your true natural self and go off and find your bliss. If you're in a marriage or a relationship or anything like that, you know if it's not working, do everything you can. Try and try and try again. Everything you can to be able to have a harmonious relationship. And if you find you just can't fit in, you have a choice to make. Stay there and be miserable, or leave and find where you do fit in. It's just as simple as that. The world is out there. It's not going to change. It's up to us to find our place where we fit in. Think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. Every single piece is different. It has a different design. It has a different picture on it. And there's a perfect place for that piece of the puzzle, somewhere within that mass of the jigsaw pieces. And when you find it, everything else around you begins to fit in perfectly. But no matter where else you go, no matter where else you put that piece in the puzzle, it's not going to fit. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be pushed, and it's going to be relegated to a lower status. Now, nobody knows this better than people in the audience or people in this community or people in the world that are lesbian or gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. These people, I believe, have faced it their entire life. Inside there was a message. Inside there was a feeling of what they were, but the entire world rejected it. They wouldn't allow them to become what they were because it just didn't fit in with something, whether it was family, school, a lot of churches, but they did it. And I applaud them for the confidence and the courage to come out and say, this is the way I am. If you accept me, fine. If you don't, that's okay too. They are the duck that left the clucking chickens and glided softly across the water. And that might be the case for us too, whether you're gay or whether you're not gay, whether you're transgender or whether you're not transgender. We all face those kind of discriminations. We face those kind of demands that say if we don't fit into this model, then we're not acceptable. And it's that standard, normal model that nobody really fits into. So as we go into meditation, I want you to think about this. Think about yourself. Is there something missing in your life? Are you happy with yourself? Are you trying to live up to artificial standards that you need to look a certain way, you need to be a certain way, you need to have so much money, you have to do things a certain way? Or are you just going to find your own path? And that'll take you exactly to where you fit in. Everything else will come in around you. We'll now move into meditation.